What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with 7 reasons to avoid getting the Moto G Stylus 2023. So without further ado, let's get started. Now to clarify, I think the Moto G Stylus 2023 is an excellent phone, and especially when you factor in how affordable this device is. Of course, if you're not spending too much on a smartphone, you shouldn't expect to get every feature out there. But on the other hand, not everyone's aware of what features you get for a phone in this price range. And that's why I decided to make this video. I just want to go over what the main features are that we're actually lacking here in exchange for this device being so affordable. Now, the first reason to potentially avoid getting the Moto G Stylus 2023 is the build materials of the phone. Now, the display of this device is made of glass, but all other parts of the phone are made of plastic. Now, on a more positive note, I feel like Motorola has made the best of the materials that we're getting here. This phone looks a lot more expensive than it actually is, and I also really like the frosted finish on the back of the phone. But keep in mind that since it is made of plastic, it's certainly way more prone to getting scratched up as time goes on, so I do recommend pairing this phone up with some sort of case. And if you still want to see how the phone looks on the back, you can always get a clear case to pair up with it. But certainly, I would not use this phone for a long period of time without a case if you're expecting it to stay in really good condition. Now, coming in number 2 is the low display resolution. Now, with this device, we're getting a very large 6.5-inch display, which is great. Another awesome thing too is that it does feature a 90 Hz refresh rate, so you're getting a very smooth experience when navigating around the phone. And we're also getting a 20:9 aspect ratio, and we're getting a hole punch for the front-facing camera. So in many ways, I really like the display that we're getting here with the phone. But there is one main problem about it, and that is that the display is only 720p. I really wish we would have gotten a 1080p display here with the phone, especially since the display is so large. Now, the PPI of this device is 270, so definitely on the lower end compared to many smartphones out there. And then since it is 720p, if you're watching 1080p videos in the phone, for example, you won't be able to view them in their full resolution. Another thing too is that this phone does take 1080p video, so you can't actually view videos taken with the phone at the full resolution of those videos as well. Now, is it a deal breaker that the display is only 720p? I personally don't necessarily think so. Thankfully, they've implemented it very well where things do still look very crisp and clear, but at the same time, there's really no way to get around it being 720p if you are looking for a phone that has a display with a higher resolution. So I understand that to give this phone its very affordable price, they had to cut corners somewhere. And I think they actually made a decent decision making it 720p, but just know that if you're used to using a phone with a 1080p display, you probably will notice that there's a lower resolution here. Now, coming in at number 3 is that there's no NFC with the Moto G Stylus 2023. Now, this is probably one of my biggest frustrations with this phone, with it not having NFC, because that's a feature I use all the time with phones that actually have it. So if you're not familiar with NFC, that's essentially the technology that's used to make mobile contactless payments. So if you want to use your phone for tap and pay, kind of similar to Apple Pay on the iPhones, but you'd be using it here with Google Pay, you can't do that here with this phone. Now, if you've been using a phone for a long time with NFC and you always find yourself using Google Pay and doing tap to pay with your phone, then you might expect that at this point in 2023, every Android device has NFC so that you can do that. But unfortunately, with the Moto G Stylus 2023, that feature is not present here. And that is a hardware feature. It's not something they can add with a software update, which is a bit unfortunate. So just know that if you are looking for a phone with that feature, you're not going to be finding that here with this device. And it's not just me pointing out no NFC as a shortcoming. Many other media outlets and also other content creators have pointed this out, and overall, many people are very frustrated that Motorola is not including that with really any of their G series phones. I'm hoping that when the Moto G Stylus 5G 2023 launches a little bit later on, that has NFC, especially since that phone is going to be more expensive than this one, but we'll have to see about that. Now, the fourth shortcoming of this phone is that there is no ultra wide angle camera. Now, we do have a dual camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera and a 2 megapixel macro camera, but unfortunately, there is no ultra wide angle camera. So if you're not familiar what an ultra wide angle camera is, basically it's just another camera on the device that can fit a lot more of your surroundings in a single frame. Now, I'll show you the cameras that we have. So here's how things look with the regular 50 megapixel camera. So not bad. I mean, it gets the job done, that's for sure. And you can't just use the ultra wide camera and only the ultra wide on any smartphone because it's a whole different type of photo that it takes. So certainly having a great main camera is something that you absolutely must have or ideally have with any device, but having the ultra-wide camera can come in handy in certain situations. If you're on vacation, maybe you want to capture a lot of your surroundings, or maybe you are taking a photo of a large building and you want the whole building to fit in your photo, then that's where that camera comes in handy. But we also have the macro camera, and then with that, you can get very close up and have things be in really good detail. But overall, I feel like the ultra-wide camera is a lot more useful than a macro camera. So if I did have to pick to have two different cameras on a phone like we have here, I would have swapped out the macro for an ultra-wide. Now moving on, another reason to potentially avoid getting the Moto G Stylus 2023 is that there is no 5G support. Now at this point in 2023, I do think you can get by without 5G and just go with only 4G LTE. But on the other hand, if you're gonna go through all the time and effort of buying a brand new device, I feel like you may as well get one that does support your carrier's latest and greatest network. So the fact that you're not getting that here is a bit unfortunate. Now, as I mentioned a little bit ago, we will be getting a Moto G Stylus 5G 2023, just like we had one last year as well. And that phone, of course, will have 5G support in addition to some other features as well, since it is meant to be a bit more premium compared to this phone. So if you do want 5G, you can go for that device, but just keep in mind that you're not getting that here with this phone. Now coming in number 6 is that there is no wireless charging here with the Moto G Stylus 2023. Now wireless charging is one of those features that some people use all the time and other people don't care to use at all. Now for me, I personally do use wireless charging quite a bit, and especially with any device that does support it. So I have wireless chargers throughout my home. I have one in my kitchen, I have one in my bedroom, I also have one in my office. And it's very convenient just to put the phone on that wireless charger and have it begin immediately charging. Now the second benefit with having wireless charging on a phone is that if for some reason your charging port were to get damaged, then at least you still have an alternative method to recharge the phone until you get that repaired. But with this device, we don't have that feature, so you don't get that benefit. But I'm definitely really curious to know what your opinions are related to wireless charging. Is that a feature that you personally use quite a bit and you absolutely must have with any device? Or do you not mind not having wireless charging on your smartphone? Definitely very curious to know. But again, for me at least, I do wish that this phone did have that, because that is something that I do tend to use quite often. And then for the final reason to avoid buying the Moto G Stylus 2023, that is the processor that we're getting here with the phone, and the fact that it's not necessarily that powerful. Now that shouldn't be much of a surprise. Of course, if you're only paying $200 for a smartphone, or potentially less if you get this phone through a carrier, or if it's on sale, then you shouldn't expect it to be that powerful, especially because we have smartphones out there that are $1,000, even more than that, $1,500, and those phones tend to be the fastest options out there and the most powerful. So with this device, we're getting 4 gigabytes of RAM, paired up with the MediaTek Helio G85 processor. Now overall, on a more positive note, that combination will still work pretty well for the majority of people out there. It's not like this phone is so slow that it's useless. I mean, it certainly works well as a smartphone. It's just that if you're doing more demanding tasks, such as video editing or high-performance gaming, or you're running multiple apps at the same time, or if you're someone that's just using your phone constantly, then I definitely think you'll find some major frustrations with this device as time goes on. But if you are someone that's looking for more of the fundamentals of a smartphone, maybe you just make phone calls, text messages, occasionally go online, do occasional social media, and occasionally take photos and take videos, then this phone will get the job done for you. It's not like everybody out there needs the highest end option available, and most people only need a device like this one. So if that's the case for you, then this won't be a bad purchase and you won't regret it. Now I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6, and here are the scores that I got from that test. So I got a single core score of 446 and a multi-core score of 1491. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of how the Moto G Stylus 2023 compares to what you currently have. Because it is possible this phone might be slower than your current phone, and if that's the case, then it probably won't be much of an upgrade for you. But this concludes my video on 7 reasons to avoid getting the Moto G Stylus 2023. Like I mentioned earlier on in the video, overall, I think this phone's an excellent value, and you shouldn't expect to get every feature if you're not paying too much for the device. But at the same time, I don't want anyone to get this phone being surprised that it is lacking certain features. So hopefully this video gave you a better idea of what to expect here with the phone. But if you enjoyed the video, definitely give it a thumbs up, let me know what you think in the comment section below, and definitely check out my other Moto G Stylus 2023 content here on the channel. But this is Kevin, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care and have a great rest of your day.